It's just buffering to YouTube, so bear with me for 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'll be checking the live stream side by side.
Live now.
I'm just gonna double check that once on YouTube. Oh, apologies. Okay. Yep. We look to be live. Thanks for that.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the KTV candidate debates. Today we have the student engagement debates and we have the debates for Vice President Postgraduate Experience. My name is Eddie Thomas. I am the head of factual and the moderator for the student engagement debate. Like we said earlier, it is going to be 2 debates today. Each debate is going to be running for approximately 45 minutes, unless there is going to be overtime as well. So today for student engagement, we are joined by Carolina and by Felicia. So welcome both of you to the debates. As per the debate rules, as from on Tuesday, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statements and 1 minute for their closing, plus approximately 45 to 60 minutes of debate time to go through all their pledges and their campaign and all the policies. So I'm going to get my timer ready. As with last time, I'm going to do the opening statement. I'm going to start alphabetically. So Carolina, you are first alphabetically. I want you to be ready to start with your 2 minute opening statement, starting now.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Carolina, and I'm a 3rd and final year international business student running to be your next Vice President of Student Engagement. I'm running for this role because I want to see Kent Union earn back the respect and trust of the student body. Each year, a new officer team provides an opportunity for a fresh start, a new chance to build meaningful and mutually beneficial relationships, and I believe I'm the right person for the job. I bring some great leadership and communication skills to the table, both online and in person. And I believe I also have some great stakeholder relationship building skills, which I can thank my degree for. I know what it takes to run a committee, and I'm familiar with a lot of the Kent Union decision-making processes too, from my 3 years of being involved in all sorts of things. I can see that there are many flaws and that priorities need to be reshuffled and reevaluated in order to give the students what they need and deserve. This is why I would love to be the person to make the student experience next year absolutely amazing, while also continuing to do what I love, which is working and surrounding myself with creative, motivated, and active people. To sum it all up, I'm exuberant and enthusiastic, passionate but professional, and most importantly, here to fight on your side, not against you.
All right, thank you very much, Carolina. And then with 30 seconds to spare. Okay, and that means finally on the clock, we have Felicia. So Felicia, when you are ready, Your 2 minutes for your opening statement starts now.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Felicia. I'm running to be your Student Engagement VP at Kent Union. I am a fourth year student, so I am a BSc Anthropology student doing a year in data analytics this year. I have been involved in Kent Union since my very first year at university, and I've been very passionate about student experience, the societies on campus, and engaging in student life. I have many priorities and focuses of how I'd like to improve the union. And I think through the experiences that I've had in the various roles that I've been in, through committees and part-time officer roles as well, I feel that I have the experience and the insight to make these a reality. So my main focus is to honour what it is that students want to see improved in the union and to create a thriving environment as we return to campus next year and make it the best that it can be. I would love the opportunity to instill these priorities, and yes, very passionate about the role.
No worries. Thank you very much, Felicia. So now that concludes opening statements. As ever, this is a Zoom live webinar as well. So all attendees for this debate, you can use either the chat or Q&A functions and ask your candidates questions. Please make sure you preface who the question is aimed for with the candidate's name. If it's for Carolina, please preface it with her name, with Felicia for hers, or if it's for both candidates, preface it for both/all. And please remember to get involved if you're watching live with the hashtag KentVotes21 and with the hashtag KUDebates. So with that, I am going to begin questioning. So my first question is, this is actually going to pertain to both of you. So obviously both of you have like very distinctive experiences involved with the student engagement role and its remit. Both of you also have a strong focus with community action groups being one of the things that you two tend to overlap on. With keeping your answers as succinct as possible, can you please explain further your support for community action groups should either of you be elected VP SE? And I'm going to start with Felicia.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So a big focus for me coming from the School of Anthropology and Conservation is to declare university-wide climate emergency. So obviously there's a lot of community action groups and campaigns going around campus, but I think one that I've really chosen to focus on and I think should just be throughout policy in the year to come is focusing on sustainability. So there's already a lot of groups doing fantastic jobs. SAC, Sustainability Working Group, is one of those groups. And I've worked closely with Conservation Society as well before, and ECS. And the general consensus is that I would love to promote that within the Kent Union offices as well. So policy-wise, I would like to instill specific, time goals and plans so that officers are held accountable to specific sustainability goals. And I would like to encourage different schools to do similar things or to join with the sustainability working group so that there's more communication between the union and the groups that are doing fantastic work so that we can promote it to a university-wide audience. So yes, as well as sustainability, there's other groups that I would really like to focus on. And how I would support that is by bringing awareness to them, giving them a platform, and making sure that communication between the union and these groups is very frequent and transparent.
Right, so I've also been involved with some community action groups around campus, mainly Movember and UBT, which is our university group team that raises awareness for Copperfield. And these are both two really important charities to me. And I've really enjoyed working with them. So in terms of policies, what I would love to see is for them to be able to reach a broader audience throughout the year. So when manifestos are being made, one of the things I would like to do is make sure that we focus on inter-society and sport club collaboration and cooperation more. For example, we have networking nights for Team Kent Network and the Activities Network, where committees can come together and discuss issues, problems, and concerns, but also the great things that are going on. And for example, inviting our environmental sustainability groups and groups such as Movember and UBT to come to these networking nights to talk to us about what they're doing for charity and how we can get involved will definitely resonate well with the people that are currently engaged in committees, because at the end of the day, these students are always looking for opportunities to get involved. And I absolutely echo the sentiment of putting sustainability at the forefront of everything we do next year, because I would like to keep living on this world and making the most of my life. And I don't think that the university has done nearly enough. So there's so much potential and so much fun to be had, especially with RAG. You can see that they offer so many great opportunities for students to get involved in so many charitable things and have a good time. So I'd love to promote that more.
No, that's brilliant. So thank you both. My next question is going to be aimed directly at Felicia. You mentioned earlier about your work with climate policy and how the School of Anthropology and Conservation had declared the climate emergency and your involvement or your participation in helping that. And obviously you mentioned climate change and also sustainability as part of your campaign. Can you outline some more of your key, not necessarily priorities, but pledges or policies that you would like to enact pertaining to sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've spoken with a couple of the groups this week as well, discussing what's currently very important to them and what they feel the university can do to improve sustainability on campus. And a lot of the focuses that I have is that I'd like to, I agree with the sentiment that Caroline has, is that it's the communication with these groups that is so vital, because they're really doing an amazing job. All they want is representation university-wide that speaks on their behalf and has the same sentiments as well. So I would like to introduce individual officer goals, which would be specific to the officer's role, so what they feel would be an achievable goal within their specific role, and then collective goals as well, which would be in line with and discussed with the groups to become as sustainable as we possibly can as a union and as a campus as well. I'd like to start regular monthly sustainability meetings so that these goals aren't just something that's everyone gets very excited about and we aim to achieve it, but it's timed, it's regular communication, and it's completely transparent. Anyone's welcome. So I'd like it to be a very open platform, and I'd like the officers to be held accountable as well to the goals that they state that they're going to achieve.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much, Felicia. We do have another question that's come in, submitted in by one of the participants, and it's coming in from Ellen Land, who is one of the candidates for VP Academic Experience. Her question is to the both of you. How do both candidates hope to amplify LGBTQIA+ and BME voices in engagement? And I'm going to start with Carolina.
That's such a great question and such an important thing that I'd love to address. So the first thing that I would do is go and build good relationships with the people who are running our BAME, LGBTQ and accessibility networks and student groups, to show them that I'm here to listen and I'm here to make sure that they have their voices heard. At the minute, I feel like especially accessibility is kind of an afterthought when Kent Union makes their decisions and implements policies, but this shouldn't be the case in any way. So making sure that we are communicating regularly so that they can tell me what they'd like to see, how I can help them, things that they're enjoying, things that are going well, because obviously I can't speak for them. All I can do is listen and promise them that I will fight on their side to make sure that they feel represented and they feel appreciated. Also, a thing that I would really enjoy and push for next year is for Kent Union to set aside a budget for sports and societies to spend towards making their activities more accessible. For example, I'm a part of fencing, and we do have one wheelchair with which we can offer wheelchair fencing. And it's so great. We've had people even just with injuries who've been able to continue training because we have this option. And to be able to push more sports and encourage them to do the same would definitely make it more appealing for people with accessibility needs to join more societies on campus. Then another thing I'd love to focus on is to really stick to the zero tolerance policy. I spoke to some members of a society the other day who brought up with me that they had been discriminated against, and they brought this up with Kent Union, they brought this up with the university. They sat through hours and hours of meetings, and they even reached a point where they had created a plan to tackle these issues, and then the plan wasn't implemented. And I'm not going to sit here and let the university make promises and vague commitments, or even commitments on paper that they do not put into action. That's unacceptable. So I will be there, I will be loud, I'll be vocal, and I will make sure that we push for serious commitment to action. And then finally, there's still enough time to answer this question. What I would love is to make the welfare officer role, which has been something that we've implemented quite recently, and to transform that into a welfare and inclusion officer with EDI training, so that clubs understand the barriers that students from our BAME communities and LGBTQ+ communities face, so that we can make sure that they feel respected and represented within their communities and their societies that they want to join, so that not only they join, but then they remain members because there's someone vouching for them and making sure they get the best experience. That's all.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. I think the sentiment's definitely there. We can't say that we can provide the platform to hear what it is that these groups, what's valuable to them, but we can't speak on their behalf. So I think the main thing will be just communication, 100% hearing what's important to these groups and how best we can improve things in the day-to-day life. I think one of the main things I've noticed, and I've spoken to a couple of societies and there's a lot of agreement, is that accessibility is definitely an issue. I think there's sometimes stigma around certain, joining certain groups and things like that. And I think that really needs to have a complete zero tolerance policy. Like, accessibility to societies, to your union needs to be completely open. And I think that just needs to be the consensus. So yes, 100% communication with these groups to see where it is they'd like their union to go and how they'd like their union to improve, so that every member feels welcome and like they can join any group and there isn't any kind of disrespect or anything in that regard at all, and to celebrate different groups, because at the end of the day, we're a union that has over 100 societies. There are passionate people. We want everyone to have an amazing time, to make the best of their university and student life. So that would be a major priority for me, to promote that and to provide that platform for all these groups.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So thank you very much. I do have another submitted in question as well. This question comes in from Aisha, who is the current VP Welfare and Community and is also running to become the next union president. Her question is this, and this is aimed for both of you. How can you improve liberation events and awareness and engage people in campaigning? And I'm going to start with Felicia on this one.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think especially with campaigning, and when you want, an entire student body to focus on a specific campaign or specific issue, I think it's very important to be able to promote that university-wide. So as officers, there's a very important role. You are essentially representatives of your union. So going out and speaking to people and engaging them is obviously a massive priority. I think when it comes to bringing attention to certain projects and campaigns as well, using social media is just a given. It's the best way to access people. And promoting, I think, having a focus. So within our union, we could definitely have focus weeks or focus areas and where we can promote specific campaigns and projects and initiatives, so that there's a spotlight on these. I think because there's so many groups, it's quite easy for the focus on something to be lost. So I'd really like the union to be quite a promoter, and provide focus on specific campaigns and initiatives, so that the entire university is aware of what's going on and they can get involved. Yeah, I think that's my answer.
So yeah, when it comes to, creating more awareness for liberation groups and showing students that they can campaign, I think what's really important to begin with is to have a good relationship with the current liberation groups we have on campus. I feel like a lot of them might be feeling a bit neglected at this time, been put to the background with all things that have happened with COVID. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but at no point did Kent Union or any of the sabbatical officers reach out to my student group to see how we were doing. And I imagine this is probably the same for some of our liberation groups as well. And I think for them, it's most important that they know that Kent Union is there for them, to give them a platform, to make sure their voices are being heard and that they're able to campaign for all the things they want to. So creating this good relationship is absolutely important and will be at the forefront of everything I do next year. And then when it comes to campaigns, what I think would be great is when someone has an idea and they feel comfortable to bring that idea to me, to tell me about it. For starters, I'll probably get excited because I love to hear people talk about things they're passionate about. But then for them to have the opportunity to go and speak to the current engaged members of Kent Union, I think that it's very important to go out and get them on board, because at the end of the day, it's easier to get people who are already engaged to stand with them when it comes to campaigns, rather than trying to find people in ensuring housing and seeing if maybe they want to be a part of something. Some people just don't really. And then I'm very big when it comes to changing the social media and marketing strategy. I don't like the Kent Union Instagram or social channels particularly a lot, considering that we have literally thousands of beautiful, talented students with passions and interests that I would love to show everyone. And we continue to post low quality stock pictures. So absolutely changing how we make use of our socials and how we market events and campaigns and reward our student groups by giving them recognition, I think is definitely a step that needs to be taken. And as far as I'm concerned, I've been studying social media management beside my degree because it's something I really like. It's not difficult. It's really not. So that's something I would love to see next year. And by improving the platform, I think more students will want to campaign because they know they'll be heard.
Yes, and that's brilliant. So thank you very much. Obviously, in your answer, Carolina, you mentioned something. You mentioned about communication and transparency and how you felt there's a bit of a major inconsistency between communication between societies and Kent Union, which leads on to my next question quite perfectly. I think because, again, not just that you mentioned it in your answer, you've also mentioned it in interviews with KTV, and also you mentioned it in your campaign as communication and transparency is one of the key things that sort of cropped up in your campaign. Can you explain or elaborate more on what would you do to be more transparent, or to better what you think will be bettering communication between the union and societies?
Absolutely. This is one of my biggest, most important things. And I strongly believe if we improve communication, it solves like half of our issues. So when it comes to transparency, you get your candidates every year who promise transparency and then nothing much really comes of it. So I am, once again, one of those candidates to promise you transparency, but I do genuinely mean it. I think that what's most important to me is that at my time, throughout my time here at Kent, I've heard a lot of no's from Kent Union. It's always been, no, we can't do this, you can't do that, your budget's been cut, yada, yada, yada. But we've never had a why, like what was the reason? And that's what the transparency I'd like to provide is, like, why aren't we getting funding that we signed up for? Why wasn't I considered for these things? And not just because it makes students understand the decisions that are being made, but it's also to show that I am trying my very best. It's not usually the officers who say no, it's usually the people above them in Kent Union. And just to make that very clear, because I feel like right now, the officers are kind of just, they always get told off, when in reality, most of the time, it's not their decisions. They're always fighting for the students, but it's the people above them who stop decisions from going through. So that's why I think it's really important for me to, log on to Instagram and log on to Facebook. I'm literally on my phone 24/7, just to give you even like a weekly update, probably do a daily update of things I've been up to. If you want, I can vlog a day in the life of being a Kent Union officer. Like, I'm so open to being more creative in the way we communicate, more engaging. And yeah, so that's transparency there. In terms of communication, just the basics, like Kent Union offers a customer service. But right now, if you ask me, honestly, I would probably rate them a 3 out of 10. If I send them an email, I have to wait 3 weeks. That's a lot of time. And sometimes it's urgent. Like, sometimes it's really urgent. And I try to give them enough time in advance, but you can't always do that. And I think that's what a lot of students are frustrated about. But it's such a basic thing, like just logging into your emails, acknowledging that you've received an email, and even if you can't do something about it right there and then, just sending a quick response that's not automated, but something like, hello, thanks for contacting us. We've seen your question. We'll direct it to the relevant person, and you can expect to hear back within this many days. It keeps people in the loop. It makes them feel like they're not being ignored. And right now, I think that's what most people are pissed off about. They're not getting heard. They don't know if their emails are getting read, and they're dreading getting in contact with Kent Union. And that's not how we want people to feel. We want people to feel like Kent Union staff and officers are there to help them, and they can count on them to fix their problems that they don't have as much control of as simply students. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much. So one of my next questions is, I'm going to aim my next question to Felicia, because obviously Carolina has already outlined her policy for social media, and I want to sort of hear Felicia's. Felicia, I want to hear your own policies regarding communication and also social media, and how that might tie into your role for VPSE.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with a lot of what Carolina said. I think transparency and communication is huge issues, and it definitely needs to be addressed. I think any candidate currently can agree to that. Especially communication. I think I've heard from countless societies in the last week or two of just simple communication where they feel really left behind, and I think, on a day-to-day basis, societies do so much that all they really want is a response, a quick response to let them know that yes, they are, exactly what Carolina said, are being heard, and that they do have support. So when it comes to improving communication and social media on campus as an officer, I would 100%. It's being active and yes, in transparency. I think that really comes down to just letting students know exactly what's going on. I think on average, an average student doesn't really know what their officers are up to on a day-to-day basis, and I don't think that is fair in either direction, because I think the officers do a good job, in a lot of ways. They do the best that they can, and I think that the achievements that are, that occur throughout the year are not being celebrated, and students aren't aware of it, and on the other side of that, students don't feel involved in their union because they're not hearing about what the officers are up to, or what the plans are for the next couple of months, or how the union wants to improve anything. So yeah, I think frequency, 100%, constantly letting students know what they're up to, what the officers are up to, what the union's plans are. And social media is, it's an endless avenue. I mean, we have so many options: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. There's so many opportunities to engage with a student every day, and I think that would be a fantastic thing to see is an officer team in the year to come where social media is just a daily occurrence where students constantly know what the union officers are up to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So thank you very much, Felicia. While still on the note of social media, one thing that has cropped up is that there is a growing engagement of students being more proactive on social media as of late. My question is aimed to the both of you. How do you utilize the role of student engagement and utilize that level of student engagement with social media? So what I mean by this is, how would you be able to utilize social media platforms into better student engagement in your capacity as a VP and to get more people involved? And I'm going to start with Felicia.
Yeah. So I think with social media on a general basis, I think obviously, like I said before, letting the union students know what the officers are up to. So that's, frequent updates. I'd love to see a weekly, video where each officer, promotes exactly what they were up to that week, the societies and groups that they spoke to. And I think, everyone is on social media all the time. I think if we've learned anything this last year, it's probably a little bit too much. So I think, if the engagement is anything with social media, it's accessing every avenue. So making sure that information is on every single platform that is available to us, and making sure that it's very informative, but also it needs to be digestible. I think a lot of people are quite put off when they receive a lengthy email, or multiple emails. So I think there's definitely ways to improve the way that information is received to students. And I think, yes, that will come in the way of officers creating a lot of social media content, which would be a part of the role. And I think just as a union as a whole, there needs to be quite a collective output of information. I think at the moment there's a lot coming from a lot of different angles, and a lot of it doesn't always line up. So I'd like to see a cohesive statement and platform through social media from the union.
No worries. And Carolina?
This is a really great question, and it ties in with one of the things that I'm probably most passionate about in this entire campaign, which is engaging the unengaged, right? So at this point in time, Kent Union is really, really trying to get the unengaged people involved. But as far as I'm concerned, the way they're doing this is by hoping and praying that one day students will wake up and decide to get active, which isn't how things go. That's realistically not going to happen. So what I want to do is to make the student experience for the currently engaged students 10 times better. So when it comes to social media, what this means is reposting their content, promoting their events, putting their faces at the forefront of all of our Instagrams and Facebooks and whatnot. Because at the end of the day, what makes you more excited than seeing yourself on the Kent Union Instagram with 5,000 followers, right? I would love that. I think that's great. And that just ties in with recognizing their efforts and rewarding them for it. And it creates more traffic towards their socials. More people are, aware of the niche sports and societies we have. I'm sure that, as a very active sports member myself, I don't think I could name all the sports clubs we have on campus. And if I looked at a list, I would probably be surprised by some of them. But if we can promote them and share their content and give them recognition to, get more people aware of what's going on, that would be amazing. One of the things I'd also really like to do is just be as creative as possible and have as much fun with it as I can. So I would, for example, love to work with KTV and do something super silly, like try every single sport on campus, get you guys to come film me. That way, I get to meet everyone, I get to try all the sports, and everyone gets a free little promotional video, which we can put out. It's great content for you guys. It's great content for the sports clubs. And you have this one place where you can see everything that's going on. And I'm sure similar things could be done with our societies and student action groups. So yeah, just being creative and fun and coming up with out of the box ideas that maybe sound silly, but once they're done, you've met new people, you've engaged people, and different societies will have come together to make projects like that work. And I think that's definitely the way to go forward.
Fair, no, that's fair enough. One thing that has also cropped up in your answer and is actually going to form the basis of my technically next two questions. So obviously you mentioned, Carolina, about interacting with other student groups. The thing I wanted to posit to both of you is the fact is obviously you two come from different types of society backgrounds. Obviously, Carolina, you have quite a lot of experience focused on sporting societies, considering your involvement, and with Carolina and with Felicia, sorry, you have a lot of experience working with some of the activities-based societies as well as various community action groups, including Kent Rag. My question is, and it's obviously going to, how I'm going to phrase it is going to be slightly different to both of you. So for Felicia, the question I'm asking is, considering you have a more community action group based background, how would you see yourself trying to work and support other societies, including other activities-based societies and other subdivisions, including academic societies, as well as sporting societies in your remit? And a similar applies to you, Carolina, but instead of sporting, it will be to community action groups and activities-based societies. And I'm going to start with Felicia first.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that I've spoken to a lot of the sport societies about, actually, because obviously I am coming from a different side of the student engagement role. So yeah, 100%, I understand that there will be aspects of running a sports society, different issues and challenges that sports societies will face that I may not be 100% aware of. So it will just be initially establishing a really good relationship with the sports clubs and societies, having a panel discussion, establishing what the issues are, how they'd like improvements. I think from an academic perspective, I was the president of the Anthropology Society. So when it comes to understanding the academic needs, and because that has a whole different ballgame as well, I mean, you are engaging your school a lot more than other societies are. So it's completely different perspectives. And I think the best way to combat any kind of issue in relating to these student groups and helping them, supporting them, promoting the amazing things that they're doing, it will be obviously a communication, establishing a really good relationship with these groups and seeing from them specifically how they would like improvement, because there won't be anyone that knows better than the groups themselves. And going forward on that, I'd love to create platforms and campaigns to help them achieve this as well.
That's brilliant. And Carolina?
Yeah, that's obviously a question I saw coming, as I haven't been able to clone myself and join every sport club and society and community action group on campus as much as I would love to. That, hasn't been possible. But one thing that I did some research on is I saw that with the new divisions, the university has recently opened a position for student experience managers, which essentially are staff that plan events for the divisions. And I think it would be super great to get involved with events to make sure that, a student voice is always present in these conversations. So that's something I would love to do for all of our academic societies and the newly introduced divisions. In terms of societies, I did a little poll on my Instagram. I actually got a pretty good turnout, so thank you guys if you did vote in that. A lot of the problems that sports clubs face are currently also being faced by societies from, the responses I've received. Communication, transparency, recognition is just lacking in every way, shape, or form. So I think I have a good understanding of the basic needs, but obviously, like I've said a couple of times, I'm so interested in getting to know people personally and, actually reaching out to them regularly to see what the more specific needs they are. And they need the specific needs they have are, because obviously I haven't had any firsthand experience on running a society, but I'm a good listener and I'm definitely determined to make their experience better. And I'm always open to a chat, always ready for criticism. But having a basic understanding of what it takes to run a student group through being a part of the fencing committee has definitely been really beneficial, because I don't know if I speak for more than just myself, but just having held a committee position has given me so many more employability skills than like my degree. No shade, but I think people agree. So yeah, the foundation is there.
No worries, thank you very much. So I'm going to take some questions now that have been submitted in via the Kent Union question submission form. So my first question is, and this, though it does favour Carolina slightly, I do think it's a question suitable for both. The first question I'm asking from the submissions taken in from Kent Union: how would you tackle transphobia and homophobia within sports clubs and encourage these groups to engage with sports? So I'll take whoever wants to take that question first.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will not tolerate transphobia or homophobia on this campus. And I think that should be in sports at the forefront of everything that, you know, this position does. It shouldn't just be coming from the union, it should be coming from Kent Sport as well. And I would love to work with our LGBTQ plus community to get their opinions on how they currently feel like they're being treated, like whether they feel, you know, afraid to join anything, what the boundary, the barriers are for them to be joining sports clubs and societies. Obviously, we have recently created gender neutral changing rooms and toilets. And I think that's definitely something that we should push for more around campus, not just in the gym. But it would also be really lovely to, for example, create specific days where people from these communities can come and work out in the gym in a safer environment to, you know, get them out there with people that they feel comfortable around. And then hopefully from there, once they've had experience using the gym, might feel more comfortable coming in during normal times as well. Obviously, it's really hard for me to comment on this because it's not something I can relate to, but I'm definitely here to listen to their needs, to work with them, to make sure that they don't feel like they're being neglected in any way, because at the end of the day, I want them to enjoy sports and societies just as much as I do, just as much as, you know, Felicia does. And I'm sure she agrees there, making sure that they're listened to, making sure that there's no tolerance for discrimination and disrespect and all of the above is so important. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, Kent Union had worked with one society that faced discrimination and they made a plan, but nothing came of it. So when it comes to things relating to transphobic actions and stuff like that, I think we should sit down, create a plan, and then implement it. We can't just sit down and talk about it, because talking about it, yeah, it raises awareness, but it's not enough. And I would love to work with these networks and communities and student groups to make sure that they have direct impact on what's happening, to make sure that it's the best for them.
No worries. Felicia, is there anything you wanted to add, or if you're in agreement with Carolina?
Yeah, I 100% agreement. I think it's obviously exactly the same sentiment. I would like to add, you know, obviously there is, it will come from discussions about the issues that anyone is facing. I think 100% no discrimination in any regard. I think that is just, it should be an entire consensus. I think within groups, you know, I mentioned this earlier, accessibility comes in 100 different forms, and that is feeling that you can join any society, sports group, community action group without any kind of, you know, discomfort or feeling like you don't belong there. That is just 100% exactly what I would want for everyone who is on this campus. To add to that, though, I think it's vital for groups and for students to feel that they can talk about these things. You know, it is one thing approaching groups and you know, promoting that there is no tolerance, but I would like each group to take the responsibility as well, that, you know, they are accepting members and they have a responsibility and an accountability to not allow any kind of intolerance as well. So I'd really like to establish a system that society groups and students themselves feel really comfortable speaking to officers and the union about this, and they feel like it will be resolved and there will be discussion on it and there will be action as well, because it shouldn't be left undone. You know what I mean? Like, there definitely should be action against any kind of intolerance.
No, that's brilliant. So thank you very much. I am going to ask one more question before we move on to closing statements. And again, this one has been taken from the submissions form from Kent Union. The question reads as this: if COVID-19 and by extension lockdown continues to impact the next academic year, how would you ensure students are supported? And I'm going to start with Felicia on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually had a lot of conversation with different groups the last week about this. And I think it takes a couple of different forms. So obviously academically, that's going to be, a continuous challenge. I think with that, the most important thing will be communication and transparency, where the union stands on policies and what students can expect. I think in improving student life and continuing, excuse me, to have a thriving campus and to continue having student engagement while if we are, hopefully not, but in the situation where that is the case, then I think providing a new type of platform. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about social media and engagement through those types of networks, but I also think that providing opportunities where societies can still promote the activities they're doing. So I've spoken to a couple of societies that feel that specifically due to the restrictions over lockdown and through everything we've experienced, their societies might be specifically struggling over other societies because they have maybe responsibilities that the society can function because you meet in person, or maybe you go into a bar, or specific parts that keep their society thriving. So I think it'll be engaging with these groups and ensuring that we don't lose these groups, because it's vital to have every society on campus. So it'll be about discussing plans on how to improve these groups and make them more engaging for a virtual platform, I'd imagine. Obviously, that won't be the long term, hopefully not. But if that is the case, then it would be a continuous effort, I think, and it'll have to be a lot of communication. But I would never want to lose the feeling of student life that I feel like we've lost in the last year. I want to continue that feeling of wanting to get engaged in your union and to be excited about joining different groups and meeting new people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a plan of action as well in case that COVID is still there in the next academic year. For starters, reaching out to the committees that run our societies. Like I mentioned very early on, at no point did anyone from Kent Union check up on how we were doing, even just to ask how I was doing in terms of my responsibilities as a committee member, or to, say congratulations for keeping up the hard work by doing online things. I think that's the first one, making sure that we are actively reaching out to these committees to provide them with support, to ask them if they need anything, or even just to recognize their efforts. That's the first big step. Then what I would love to do, because I love social media, is create a content calendar for people, whether it's a society, an action group, or a sports club, giving them like an outline of things they can be posting so they can stay active, provide their members with something to look forward to every day or every other day, or however regularly they want, but with a bit of structure. And then naturally that also links in with resharing their content, making sure that they feel represented still and appreciated is big. And I'd love to create online events again. I know we did this in March, April, May, and then kind of stopped, maybe because it was really low attendance, but at least there was an option to have a virtual Wednesday, and now there isn't. But I think that because lockdown has gone on so much longer than we anticipated, it might be nice to bring those back, just to have them as an opportunity for the people who do want to join. And then I think a really important one is to focus on updating and improving equipment and facilities. For example, the hockey pitches have been waiting to be updated for almost a year now. They haven't been used. The time is now to update our equipment so that they're ready for when the season can start again. So that students can make the absolute most of their year when it all begins in real person in life again. And then finally, I think one of the things I'd love to do, especially like sports related, is to get the scholarship team to provide seminars and workshops. They currently do this for the scholars, and it's really useful. I'm a scholar myself, so I get benefit from this. But I think bringing this to a broader audience, I'm sure so many more people are interested in nutrition and recovery and all other things So yeah, just providing more opportunities for students to get engaged. I would love to see that.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, so now that brings our line of questioning down to a close. So thank you, Carolina and Felicia, for asking these questions, and thank you everyone who have submitted them. Now will be the time to start with our 1-minute closing statements per candidate. And I'm again going, well, this time around, I am going to start with Carolina. So Carolina, your 1-minute closing statement begins now.
Yeah, so to sum all of this up in just 1 minute, I just wanted to bring your attention again to the fact that I'm here for transparency, for genuine relationship building with committee members, because at the end of the day, I'm really just one of you. Communication that is consistently of a high standard so that people enjoy speaking to members of Kent Union, and diversity, equality, and accessibility. Those are the things I stand for, the things I believe in, the things I want to push. And I would love to be the person to help Kent Union gain back your respect and your trust to make your student experience the best it can be online or in person. And I hope you're all as excited as I am.
Thank you very much, Carolina, and well within the time frame, so thank you. And Felicia, when you're ready, I take you're ready now. So your 1 minute for your closing statement starts now.
Yes, so I'm sure, as you've seen, obviously very passionate, as we all are, about Kent Union and student groups and student engagement. And I would be very grateful for the opportunity to provide a thriving and exciting union in the next year to come. I'd love to have the opportunity to create platforms and promote campaigns and to support students and to help them feel that the union that represents them is really there for them, and is 100% about creating the best student life and student experience that they can possibly have. I will 100% advocate for you as a student and for all the things that are important to you, through communication, transparency, and 100% just being really passionate about the union and about everything that student life involves.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Felicia. So this brings the student engagement debate down to a close. Once again, thank you to our candidates for joining in today. Up next shortly will be the postgraduate experience candidates, so please stay tuned when we're bringing our candidates on to discuss the PG role. Those debates are going to be moderated by Amritesh Das, our station manager. So I'm afraid, sadly, this is going to be my last debate, not only for this year, this academic year, but also for KTV generally. So yeah, so this is going to be my last one, but it's been an absolute wild ride. But yes, and what a debate to sign off my debate timing here for KTV. So thank you. Other than that, I would like to remind students that, and you will be reminded again at the end of the PG debate, will be that alongside the election race to decide who your VPs and presidents are, there is also another type of election happening as well. Kent Union have released a series of issues on which issues of which have been decided upon by students. So taking all those student concerns and then consolidating it into a list of key sets of issues for essentially the student body to decide. How this will work as such. Alongside the election, the students get to decide and vote on the priorities and issues that all the candidates, that all the prospective full-time officers will run under. So if you have a key issue on diversity and that becomes one of the issues that comes out on top, your candidates and your prospective FTO team will run their manifestos based on diversity, for example. Once again, I would like to thank our candidates, and please stay tuned for VP Postgraduate Experience. My name's Eddie Thomas, and this has been KTV, and we'll hope to see you very shortly. All right.
Good day and hello, everybody. I am Amateur Das, your station manager for KTV. And today I would like to welcome all of our viewers to the Postgraduate Experience Vice Presidential Debates. This is a position that was introduced some time ago, and we're very excited to have an actual debate this time, like last time where it was only one person. So I'm hopeful that we will have an insightful discussion on this subject and postgraduate experience. With me, I have all the candidates. All candidates, you will now be given 2 minutes to start your opening statements. Of course, candidates, do remember that after 2 minutes, we will have to cut you off. So apologies if we do that. I'm going to start with Achana. Can Achana please unmute and deliver your opening statement?
Hiya, just to clear, my name is Achana.
So sorry for that.
That's all right, just clearing that up. So as I said, my name's Achana. I'm running for the Vice President Postgraduate Experience role. And currently back from an intermission from a postgraduate degree, working on my thesis. I have been moving to the UK 5 years ago. I'm initially an EU student from Germany. Have been studying 3 years at Medway campus with the Greenwich University, and I've come to Canterbury in 2019 as a postgraduate. During all my 5 years, I've had several roles within the union that I started from freshers helpers to program rep to the team leader of our Give It a Go program over in Medway. I've been the co-president of students at Medway. And quite recently, I started a job as the activities administrator for GKSU. So from all my 5 years at Kent Union, I have actually seen so much behind the scenes that I think I am equipped with a lot of experience to handle this role. And so far, as a conclusion, I can say that Kent Union now feels like home, just because I've been here for so long now. Yes, that's it.
Thank you so much. Can we move on to Laura, please? Laura, please unmute, and your 2 minutes start now.
My name is Laura, and I'm a creative writing master's student. I'm running to be your VP Postgraduate Experience Officer, quite frankly, because I've had enough. I've had enough of students being exploited by the university. They are paying tuition fees with nothing to show for it. They're not using the facilities, they're not using the university to its full extent. I've also had enough of students feeling isolated and feeling alone just because there's no in-person activities up at the university. It shouldn't mean that they should feel alone at university, which I feel a lot of students have. I've also had enough of students feeling ignored, especially postgraduate students. We're expected to know what we want to do with our lives, and we haven't had that support there, and we need it. I have experience being in the society. I was part of a committee. I also have leadership skills from my part-time job. I'm the person who will bring the passion and the drive to this role. I also have an international outlook from studying abroad, so I know what the student wants, and I know the different types of students at the university. But at the end of the day, it's all about the students. It's about listening to them and listening to their priorities. So I feel like I can deliver on that.
Right, thank you so much. I'm going to move on to Toby. So Toby, would you like to unmute? And your 2 minutes start now.
Okay, thank you so much. So my name is Toby. I'm Toby Temple, and I am of course, a postgraduate studying international relations, international law. So I've been in Kent for, I think, almost nearly over 4 years now. I think as some of my other candidates have said, Kent has been, I guess now it's kind of like a home. I guess the main reason for me running is really helping the student community a lot more, especially in my current experience as being a youth worker. I've had a lot of experience working with students from different ages. and just really able to utilize that experience and skill set into this current role, and really helping bring about a greater engagement, especially with postgraduate students, engaging the disengaged students, because I really believe Kent Union has so much to offer to students, but sometimes there's like this misconception, a mirage that nothing's being done, but I think it's mainly because of a lack of awareness. So really building on the initial successes, trying to refine this, I guess, the lack of success, to really help the student community a lot more. So yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully I can be the next VP with postgraduate experience. Amazing, thank you.
Right, thank you so much. Finally, but last but not the least, and Ellie, would you like to unmute? And your 2 minutes start now.
Hi, I'm Nelly. I'm running for Postgrad VP because I think I have a massive amount of experience that I can bring to the role. I've previously been a campus executive. I've been on the board of trustees as a student trustee. I've been a course rep for the entire 6 years I've been at universities and colleges. I've also been a disabled liberation leader, and I'm part of the Accessibility Network now. So I completely understand how lots of different ways into the Students' Union works, and how engagement can be really tough through some of those, and making sure that you are aware of them and that you're making the most out of your possibilities through those is often something that gets really, really overlooked. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. In terms of passions, my other things are being a voice for all. There are big groups of students at Kent who don't feel like their voices are heard. And a lot of that comes down to them not being involved in planning situations which affect their day-to-day life. So that's something that I'm really passionate about working on. And also, I know everyone's getting bored of this word, but transparency, it's the reason it's coming up all the time is because it's so true. Like, just students knowing what their officers are up to makes such a difference to whether they feel that they're actually being listened to and whether they feel like what they need is being actioned. So there's a few ways that I want to work on that, around publishing what officers are actually up to and various other things. But yeah, they're kind of my main focuses, is just making sure people feel like they're being listened to, involving them in the choices that they actually, you know, their lives depend on, and making sure they're fully aware of everything that's going on.
Right, thank you so much, everybody with time to spare. And those were our opening statements. We're now going to move on to questions that KTV has, as well as questions that are submitted or through the Kent Union submission forum, as well as we are monitoring our chat and our YouTube live chat. So if you do want to pop any questions there, feel free to let your answers be heard, and let your questions be heard by your future. One of them is going to be the future vice president of postgraduate experience, or maybe not, maybe Ron gets voted. Let's hope that hasn't happen. Of course, moving on to one of the first questions, and I'm going to start with Laura on this one. And this question does apply to everybody sequentially. What do you think is the most important issue that postgraduates face right now? Starting with Laura.
I think the most important issue that postgrads are facing right now is being heard. They're very much ignored, I feel. They're very much sort of like pushed to the side. A lot of student events are aimed at undergrads or at freshers, when actually there's loads of postgraduates that come here that haven't been to Kent before. So they don't know the system, they don't know the university, they don't know what societies are out there, what groups are out there, and they're just kind of left to it. January starting students as well, like, they've just been ignored entirely, where they've started their degree this January and nothing's happened. Like, I understand COVID has made that an impact, but there's nothing going on for them. There's nothing for them to get involved with. And they feel very ignored by the university and by the union, because it's just very segregated towards undergraduates. When I was doing the campaigning, a lot of students as well asked me, so what is a VP postgraduate experience officer? Because they don't know what postgraduates are. They don't understand that we're actually a part of the university and we deserve to have a voice. And I would want to give them that voice and make them be heard, because they're so important to the university and so integral to the university and the system, because like the PhD students and research students, they spend a lot of time here as well, more so than what undergraduates would. So we deserve that time, that space, and that recognition for who we are and why we should be involved in the union.
Right, thank you so much. Achna, if I've got that right this time. Yeah, would you like to contribute and tell us what do you think is the most important postgraduate issue?
I think I have to definitely agree with Laura. There's a lot of the feeling of being pushed aside. I think mainly just because if you take the decision to be a postgraduate, you're probably trying to focus more on your career and trying to get into a specific field. So very openly, student unions in general just think that those students are more focused on the academics, they probably don't have time to enjoy their life, all those kinds of bits and bobs that as an undergraduate it is supposed to be fun and nice at uni is not supposed to be there for postgraduates. Whereas, like Laura said, there's so many students, including me, who haven't been to Canterbury before, that having that vision of someone thinking you are professional and you don't need any outlet from those academics is very hard for someone, and that needs to change, because it doesn't matter how much you focus on your academics, you still need an outlet to relax, to feel home, to feel like you can do your best while still enjoying your time, because as a postgraduate you don't have your 3 years sometimes. Sometimes you're a master who's just there for 12 months and that's it, you're gone. So you want to take the most out of it, and for that we need the student union to have a big focus on our postgraduates.
Thank you so much. Toby, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. So similar to, I guess, what the other candidates have said in terms of majoring on visibility, but I also wanted to really major on engagement, and I think they've implied that as well. First, from the perspective of postgraduates as well, because I think the postgraduate students, in terms of the type of postgraduate, varies. You might have parents, you might have those who vary in age completely, and they might have the perception, which is pretty much a misconception, that the SU isn't really for them. The SU is majorly focused on undergraduate. And then also maybe the attitude from the other side as well, from the SU, not really wanting to engage too much with postgraduates because of how maybe busy or how the studies will be, especially just having 1 year. So really trying to break that barrier and I guess stop that misconception and engage them a lot more, and have them understand that the SU's for them, especially what's going on with COVID and how it's impacting people financially. And you have research students who require, funding and assistance financially. That engagement really helped them to bring an awareness that, hey, the SU, the university is actually offering such opportunities for those students. So definitely visibility and engagement would be, I guess, from my perspective, one of the things I would major on in terms of the ongoing challenges. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. And Ellie, what issue do you think is most important for postgraduate students here?
I think that honestly comes down to what type of course you're on. So, for example, I'm a theatre making student. I joined my master's to get more experience in the technical side of theatre. I didn't come from a theatre degree. I came from an animation degree. So my intention was to spend this year mixing the worlds of animation and theatre. And I've had no access to my technical facilities for the whole year, which is going to be the entire length of my course. So I think if you're a practical based course that's maybe a taught master's, you've basically not got any of the practical teaching that you need. So I think for taught students who do need that practical facilities, the biggest issue now is how do I make up that gap in my knowledge before going into my industry? And that's a huge difficulty. And I think it's something that the uni needs to be working with students much more closely on in terms of ensuring that people have got the value of money. So I know for me personally, it was never about the masters as a piece of paper. It was about it as a training scheme. And I've not had that opportunity. So where we're having discussions around value for money, would I say I have that right now? Not particularly. I can completely understand that if you're doing a research-based postgrad, that might be entirely different. You know, you may still have had your support, you may still have had access to the library, you may still have had access to all of those facilities. And I know certain courses like biomedical sciences and a lot of the science courses have been allowed to continue through lockdown, even in some cases. So they've had an entirely different experience to the rest of the postgrad community, potentially. So I guess there is no one true answer to that, because each person's experience and their experience compared to what they're expecting will have been entirely different. So I think it's something that whoever gets elected, has to listen very closely to even before they come into role, because the difficulty is this role starts in September, when most students who have been here this year will have left if they're one-year courses. But our responsibility to them doesn't really end. If they've not had what they paid for, that needs to be made up, even though it's made up at a later date. And I think we need to be listening, whoever gets elected, and just the student community as a whole needs to be listening to where those differences need to be made up and what we need to be doing to mitigate the differences that COVID has caused, as unavoidable as they were. That it shouldn't be the students' responsibility to bear that on their shoulders. It should be down to the university to make sure they were getting what they agreed to when they signed up.
Right, thank you so much. I'm going to move on to the next question, which has come in through the Kent Union submission form. The question is, how would you make the union more PG friendly, so more postgraduate friendly? And I'm going to start with Ellie on this one. Apologies for having you speak in succession, but how would you make the union more PG friendly?
I think part of it comes down to whoever gets this role being much more engaged with students. I think a lot of us aren't aware maybe of exactly what the role does and what the role can do. And I think this is something that a lot of us have been encountering throughout the elections as a whole, is a lot of the expectations that are being put on this year's candidates are being based on previous year's experiences and how previous candidates have run. And the truth is, we're not the same people. We're entirely different people who are going to run it entirely differently and will commit and focus on different things. And I mean, students get to choose the students' priorities this year, but the role of the PG really does have to be getting out there and talking to students, even if that's going into postgrad study spaces, even if that's physically going out and finding people to talk to. It just takes down to that commitment level of, you know, a lot of the disconnect seems to be not understanding there are possibilities to connect with others, not understanding actually what the responsibilities are of this role and therefore what they can do for you, whoever gets elected. So I think a lot of that comes down to kind of understanding and the way that roles are enacted. But also part of it comes down to postgrads often have very different life situations to undergrads. Many of us are older, we have families to deal with, we have to work pretty substantial jobs next to our studies. Anyone that's a postgrad knows that the loan does not cover everything if you're a home student, and international students it's even harder. Like there is just so many other elements that aren't necessarily there for undergrads to have to deal with, that I think if we start focusing on the actual needs of the postgrads rather than these as a slightly idealized, oh, if we put this event on, they'll definitely come. It's like, no, what do you need? Like, do you need a parents group who gets together and goes, oh my God, my kid is killing me, I can't do my work? Like, you know, it really comes down to these really tailored events and situations in which postgrads can meet people who are in the exact same situation as them, or very similar situations. But a lot of the kind of generalized events don't fit a postgrad situation in terms of life and just headspace. We maybe think a little differently because we're that little bit older.
All right, thank you so much. Moving on to Achna, how would you make the union more PG friendly?
Definitely listen, like Nelly said, because like it was mentioned by all of us, it is a variety of students who are postgraduates, so you can't have a one size fits it all attitude towards it. And I think the whole kind of like making it friendly has to start from the beginning. You can't wait for it to be a month later even. You have to do it as soon as the students come into it, into the campus. So for example, have events being a curriculum in your first week so that they do attend simple stuff like, oh, this is where you can study when you need time for yourself. This is where postgraduates are only welcome because it is a quieter space. This is who you can contact if you feel like you need an extension because you're a parent. It's those little things, but you need to do them. I mean, right now in the pandemic, very hard, but you need to do them physically. You can't just pop out an email and be like, oh, here's all your information, because that email is either not going to get read because students get bombarded by email, or it's just going to get deleted because they haven't even read through most of it, or you can't even find it. The amount of times that I've been looking for an email that I've got at the beginning of the year and haven't found it, but I'm sure it's somewhere, is astonishing. So you need to have it so that students can be there, ask the questions, talk to each other, and find the way of opening up groups, finding other people, for example, parents finding other parents so they can talk to each other and make it more accessible for them from the first day they come to campus.
Right, thank you so much. Moving on to Toby, what do you think is the most effective way to make the union more PG friendly?
Thank you. So just building up on what has already been said, I think also making use of the existing structures. For instance, I do know on the undergrad level, there are like course reps, etc., and such similar structures, which is intended to increase engagement, etc., etc. So making more use of those existing structures to, I guess, hear the opinions and create more engagement with the postgraduate student community, to hear from them, understand what they're going through. Also, I think in terms of making it more PG friendly, also adapting to, I guess, the existing COVID-19 issue that's going on right now, particularly with social media. I think someone initially mentioned like kind of like certain groups, virtual groups, whether it's like maybe virtual care groups for different kind of postgraduate students, rather than a generalized one. Opportunities where postgraduates could network with one another. Possibly also from the perspective of the SU, having maybe more frequent review kind of meetings or discussions, maybe based on Q&As that have been sent out and what people have addressed, etc. So just following up on what's already been said, that more in-depth detail to the little things, because I think that really makes a big impact, and having a more focused and directed approach rather than a more generalized one. Yeah, so thank you so much.
No, absolutely fine. I'm so sorry for this unmuting issue. I will work on it. Finally, Nora, would you like to illuminate us on how you would plan to make the union more postgraduate friendly?
Well, it's nice to see that we're all kind of in an agreement here, because it just goes to show that no matter who gets it, we'll kind of be on that sort of level, but definitely engaging more with students, making it more of an engagement level instead of it just feeling one page or one email, just having that engagement and that transparency and everything. Also just interacting with students instead of just with an email or with paper, making it more of a front-facing person instead of just emails, letters, social media posts, getting the person out there to engage with the students. Also just like to make it, to get rid of that stigma of postgraduates being sort of like they know what they're doing with their lives. They're more professional. They completely know what's up. They're not like, you know, maybe some of them are. I know I definitely aren't. And it's just removing that stigma that is surrounding postgraduates will make it more of a friendly postgraduate space, because students will know that, oh, they're just students as well. They're not these higher up people that are, you know, they're smashing life. We're not. And just like, yeah, just making that like getting it out there from the very beginning as well. I remember when I got my student ID come through the post, and it was literally just the ID and nothing else. And it's just like, there you go, that's it, you're a student now. But there was nothing there, and maybe it would have been different if you'd gone to register in person, but that was it. It was just that. And so it's just starting it off on the right foot, I think, will just make postgraduate students feel more involved, and will break down that stigma that, oh, the university's just for undergraduates. We're just prior concerned with them, when they shouldn't be. They should be concerned with all students.
Right, thank you so much. We have got a question from one of our viewers, and just to remind our viewers that you can still pop in questions on our YouTube live chat and on the Zoom chat, and somebody will flag it up to me. So the question open to everybody is that, how aware are you of current postgraduate projects, and what the union is currently doing, and what the current postgraduate experience officer is doing, and how do you plan on building on that? Does anybody want to contribute first? Yep, sure.
Sure, I'll go first and break the ice a little bit. I've had a number of conversations with Pat. We communicate quite regularly about, we've had a number of conversations. Obviously, I'm involved with the accessibility networks. We've had conversations about PG accessibility and difficulties with getting niche books. I think especially when you hit, you know, postgrad levels, you tend to be writing on quite specific topics. And if you aren't able to get into campus, obviously, especially through COVID, that's been a problem for all of us, and we've all been using online facilities. There's quite a lot of the books aren't like accessible online, especially for quite specific topics. So we had discussions on that, but also just the kind of attitude of tutors towards sessions. So like, what is considered acceptable as a online session during postgrad? Is it, for example, to ask space and clean during a postgrad session? I don't think so, but that is something that has had this term, and kind of generally discussing. I know Pat's been working a lot on kind of value for money and trying to work with students to figure out what that means for a postgrad, if they're here for, you know, a whole PhD or just for a year of taught masters, how you make that work for everyone. And also just kind of ongoing niggling issues. So especially around the Wi-Fi and Wolf being horrendous and causing people problems with log sessions and causing people accessing things generally. You know, there are so many projects that go on behind the scenes that maybe aren't the big ones that get shared on social media, but they're the key things that make tiny little differences to everyone's daily life. I'm apologizing if I'm crackling. Apparently my internet is being annoying myself. But yeah, so I think that's something I'd really like to focus on as well, is those kind of day-to-day annoyances that actually negatively impact your student experience. So if there's something that's a kind of relatively small barrier that can be very easily fixed, you can work to those in a very short space of time, and they can make a massive difference to your experience. If it's something that you wake up in the morning and it ruins your whole day because you can't get onto that thing you needed, then actually important, even if it is a small thing. So yeah.
Right, thank you so much. Moving on to Toby, how have you engaged with current activities pertaining to postgraduates and the student union, and the current work that the Vice President of Postgraduate Experience is doing as of now?
Okay, thank you so much. So I guess in answering that question, I guess I'm actually yet to schedule a time to speak to the current officer, the postgraduate officer, about what we're doing the next few days. But I am aware of, I guess, one of the major projects or initiatives being run, I guess, which is also similar, has some similarity with undergrads as well. But I do know with what's going on with COVID, there are issues with mitigations, extensions, leniencies, postgraduate safety net, etc. Making it really convenient for postgraduates and trying to really help kind of create a safety net, especially what's going on with COVID and the impact it's had academically and financially. So I know that's also one area that's really been worked on. And I mean, it's helped me personally as a postgraduate, especially during this time, especially working from home and the limitations to the normal standard IT resources that would be available if we're on campus. So I think just trying to adapt to the current environment and make it so much more easier for postgraduates. I know that's what's been currently going on. I do know that also some other, not so major per se, but more particular projects been going on in terms of those on campus currently, and the library facilities tailored for them, particularly postgraduates. And so I guess so much more really. But I think one of the ones that I've really, I guess, struck home with me personally, and one of the ongoing projects is definitely academically and helping postgraduates as much as possible in that area. Yeah.
Right, thank you so much. Moving on to Achna, how would you say that you've engaged with current postgraduate activity done by the union, and how have you interacted, and what do you think of the work done by the current postgraduate officer?
I have to be honest, I have, as mentioned at the beginning, started my postgraduate degree in 2019. So by the time when it hit the pandemic, I kind of took the decision to intermit and haven't been back since January last year, and just started in January this year. So I haven't engaged in what they're doing right now, but from what I've seen and heard, I know that that president is not sitting on their bum and not doing anything. You just have to consider, as anyone who's listening, that the pandemic hit them very unexpected too. It's nothing that they were able to prepare for. And as much as we are putting out fires with our degree and our social and private life, they have to do that as a vice president. They have to put out all the fires that come up from all the students complaining, and not saying that those complaints are unsolicited. I know that those complaints are genuinely because something's not working right, but they have to put out those fires and also kind of like work with the pandemic. So knowing that, I think they're trying their best, but what we as the following ones can do is ease the transition. So make sure that those problems that haven't put out are put out before we go back to campus, to make sure that if, for example, regulations change and we have a more open attitude towards working from home, or for parents to not come in, and we're going to completely change the structure of how a postgraduate is going to learn on campus, that those issues that have been risen due to virtual and online classes are put out before we do these changes to regulations, because we don't want to continue and still have those problems be there and students still not being able to learn from a distance, when we know that we have a lot more experience now because we are hit by the pandemic for now a year. So we can't have any excuses anymore to not put out fires.
Thank you so much. Laura, what is your view of the current activities held by the union in regards to postgraduates specifically, and what's your view on the work currently done by the postgraduate officer, and how do you expect to build on that?
I'm just going to be honest. I haven't heard anything from Pat. I'm sure he's a really nice guy, but I feel like I represent quite a lot of disengaged students, really. Like, you know, I've tried to be engaged, but there's probably more disengaged students on campus than there are those engaged. And I, like, you know, until I started running, really, I didn't really have that idea of who he was. And I think that's so sad that a lot of students have missed out on that. I've spoken to some students as well. They didn't know who their union officer was. And it's such a shame that they're missing out on that. That's why they're not being engaged, because they don't see it. And if only that small percentage that is engaged really gets to see the work that he's doing, and the majority don't, then it's such a shame that they're missing out. In terms of sort of like how the union has worked for like postgraduate stuff, it's changed a lot. I haven't done a postgraduate degree before COVID. It's been straight up during COVID, and so I can't speak for what it was like beforehand, but it's adapting to those online spaces. From transitioning from third year into postgraduate, it's definitely felt better online this year, instead of the end tail of third year where no one kind of knew what they were doing. So there was training there for lecturers to kind of know what Zoom is now. They know how to interact with their students. They know how to put their lessons out there, which is a really good thing, but obviously it's not the same as being in person, and it never will be. But yeah, there has been activities that I've seen. Social activities, I feel like, has been a little bit on the quiet side, especially for postgraduate students. The Kent Graduate Association, I saw that they had events that went up to November, and events on Facebook haven't been on there since. And so I don't know, there has been engagement with postgraduate students, but I feel like there definitely could be a lot more, and there definitely could be well advertised to those students that aren't as engaged with the union, and maybe won't know where to look. It seems to be, especially now with my campaign page, it's if you follow the right people, you'll get the information, but that shouldn't be the thing. Those students that maybe don't use Instagram, because it seems to be heavily on Instagram at the moment, they don't get to see the events, they don't get to see what's happening, and it's a real shame that they're missing out on that.
Right. Thank you so much, everybody, for your insightful answers. Another question that we've got from one of our viewers is, why should undergraduates be concerned with the postgraduate role? I'm going to start with Archana on this one. Could you shed some light on that?
You have to repeat the last bit of the question, because I didn't hear that properly.
So sorry. Yeah, so why should undergraduates be concerned with the postgraduate role?
I think as an undergraduate, you have to take in consideration that it's not something that doesn't apply to you, in the sense of that as soon as you have your degree, you're out of university and that's it. That's just not only for postgraduate, but in generally elections. It's not only about your own student life, it's about the future. And also you can't know if you at some point are going to come back. What if you decide in a year's time, oh, why not have a postgraduate degree or come back for something else, and then all of a sudden you see nothing has changed. It's always been like that, and you could have done something. Not only that, but the changes we drive for postgraduates are also benefiting undergraduates. It's not like everything we want to do for postgraduate is exclusively being for them. Of course, we're going to think about how we can incorporate that for a general student life. So as an undergrad, it's always important to think ahead and not only at the point of view they are from. So yeah, I would say that's the reason why undergraduates should vote for postgraduate elections too.
All right, thank you so much. Vali, I see a hand raised up there. What would you like to say in regards to why undergraduates should care about postgraduate roles?
So the postgrad role is just like the first bit of the name. Like the postgrad role is really just the name. The postgrad VP experience is also responsible for international students, for mature and part-time students. So it's a much bigger role than what the name suggests. I guess the point is they couldn't include all of it because no one would ever say it. So it's, you know, if you're an international student, you should care because we'll be helping you. If you are a part-time and mature student, we will be responsible for looking after you too. The postgrad role also has responsibility for the Paris and Brussels campuses too. So if you're thinking that you might like to study at either of those at any point, like, we really are the people that kind of interact with those groups. So if you fall under any of those groups, or you think you might be interested in visiting any of those other campuses, it's really important that you research who you want to represent you and who you want to be focusing on your needs, taking that forward. I know that international students this year felt a lot like they've been left behind. I know that there's a lot of concerns, especially with the rules in England changing every 5 minutes, the rules in their own countries changing every 5 minutes. You know, do they need to quarantine? Do they not? I've had so many conversations around, I don't know what the rules are. The university rules say check the rules online, but I can find the last update I can find was 2 weeks ago. Is that out of date now? You know, there just needs to be so much clearer information for international students, especially at this time where it's all so uncertain for all of us. But they have a bigger journey, arguably, to get back for studying. And I know that there's a lot of, especially kind of third year students or part-time not part-time, sorry, my brain is glitching, ignore me for a second. So like end of their course students, basically, who are maybe back home abroad and are questioning what happens if they can't get back in time to clear their room. What are the rules around that? You know, there's so many questions that at the moment are being left completely ambiguous by the university, and students would much rather have this is one case scenario, this is the other case scenario, we don't know which of these we're going to go with yet, but like, here are the 2 options, or here are the 5 options. You know, the more students can be informed about their own experience, the more that they can kind of plan for it and know what they're doing for the next 6 months of their lives. I think also it's really worthwhile bearing in mind that you may not be thinking as an undergrad about doing a postgrad qualification now, but 5-10 years down the line, or even maybe 2 or 1, like, I never planned to do a postgrad like this time last year. I decided to do my postgrad in June or July. Like, I was a really late applicant. And I think the point is, you don't know right now whether you're going to do it or not, but it may affect you further down the line. And although this role's for 1 year, it doesn't affect 1 year, because the policies that people put in place now will affect for the next however many years those policies are in place. So I think it's so important that undergrads do consider who they would prefer, who they think is the best candidate, because it does affect them ultimately, potentially in the end. And like was mentioned, even if you're not going to do one, this role will affect kind of whole union decisions that are made. So it's super, super important to figure out who you want to vote for this role.
All right, thank you so much for that. I see Laura's hand is up, so I will go to Laura and then after that to Toby. So Laura, what do you have to say on why undergraduates should care about the postgraduate experience role?
Well, Nelly kind of hit the nail right on the head there about we're not just postgraduate focused, but one group that often gets missed out is graduates as well. That's sort of like the goal, isn't it? That everyone wants to graduate at the end of the day, and that affects postgraduates and undergrads. Yeah, hopefully, hopefully to graduate at the end of the day. So with that support there to help those students that are going to graduate, the class of 2020 has been severely forgotten. One of the reasons why I did a master's in the first place was so I didn't just go into an empty job market and had something else to fall on. But there needs to be support for those there, that the class of 2020 that have been kind of left out, the ones that are still waiting to graduate in the cathedral, like a lot of us, and also those graduates that are going to be the graduates of 2021. There needs to be the support there for them. I know the university does some events, they do some really good events on how to get into the career market and how to sort of like sort out your CV and that, but a lot of them aren't shared afterwards. For postgraduates as well, but for undergraduates as well, if you're working part-time, if you've got other studies, you've got other commitments, you can't really access these really great events that would help you, you know, that would help you with your graduation, that would help you with life after Kent. You just, if you miss them, you miss them. And I think that's such a shame that there isn't that option, especially now that a lot of them are online. So there's no excuse really to not being able to record them, even if it's just sort of like released for a week, if they're like, you know, they're desperate to get like, oh, you can only watch it this one time. If it's just released for a week so you can go back to it, that would be really beneficial to everyone who's graduating that may miss out on something or something that's clashing. But yeah, besides that, Nelly hit the nail right on the head with all those other students. It's not just postgraduates.
Right. Thank you for that. Finally, Toby, what are your thoughts on why undergraduates should care about postgraduate roles?
Great, thank you. So similar to what Laura and Nelly said, I think all the candidates really said it. I guess we're beyond just the name or the title of the role. And there's a lot more to the role and a lot more responsibility. But I mean, for a number of undergraduates, for instance, for their career aspirations, it might be necessary and mandatory maybe for them to actually have a postgraduate degree. And even if they're in the first year or the second year, the plans could change, especially what's happening with the economic climate or the job market, and they might want to, you know, improve their credentials and whatever it may be. So a postgraduate degree might be necessary or might have to be part of the plan. So really thinking for your future, and with that in mind, it gives you a great understanding of how important this role may be. And you, as an undergraduate, you might have friends who are postgraduates. Within your network, you might have postgraduates. So also thinking about them and how that lives might be impacted by the policies or the rules that might have been passed by those in this role. So yeah, I really think it's just about thinking beyond yourselves as well and helping one another and thinking about all students and how this role can also impact you in the future. So yeah, I think those are my additional thoughts.
Right, thank you so much. Moving on to another one of the questions submitted on the Kent Union Submission Forum. Could each of the candidates here perhaps elaborate on why is it that they specifically stand out in relation to the fellow candidates? I'm going to begin my Archana with this one.
Did you say Archana? Sorry, I didn't hear the last bit.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I think that's always such a mean question to ask, because it kind of starts with like, I'm better because, and I don't think I could say that, especially now after this debate, that any of us is better than the other, because as Laura and Nelly has mentioned it before, we're all kind of like seeing it the same way. So, and we're all coming from some experienced backgrounds. So there's actually not really much that differentiates us, because we're all having the same qualities and we're all very driven, like what you can tell from us. But I think personally, if I have to elaborate on it, I think I would just say the plethora of experience I bring with it and the point of views. As I said, I'm an EU student, I'm a mature student. I started as a mature student in my undergraduate. I'm in my late 20s now, not in my early 20s. So I have that view. I have the view of being from the ethnic minority. So I know how important it is to let voices be heard. So it's all those kind of little things that can add up to stand out from someone else, and I think I can bring that to the role.
Right. Moving on to Laura, do you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what's already been said. I feel like the candidates here are like, they just show that you're in safe hands, really. If I was to say something about me, it's, I suppose I'm an average student trying to do this extraordinary thing. I'm trying to give a voice to those students that do feel disengaged, or to those students that do feel underrepresented at the university. I have the drive and the passion to make my voice heard. I'm not afraid to say what I think. I will just say it, and I think that's good in a way that I am what I am. This is, you see the person here. I'm not going to hide away and try to use different fancy words and, you know, all fancy literature or whatever. Like, I'm me, and I'm a person that will fight your corner. I'm a person that has your voice. I will listen to you, and that is the most important quality that anyone could ask for, because it's about the students and the student priorities, because we're not running on manifestos this year. So it's not about our points, our beliefs, our ideas. It's about your voice and your ideas. And you need someone that can deliver on your priorities, that can deliver on your commitments, and is there for you, you know, that will listen to you and will provide a voice so that you can be heard, and that, yeah, that you're represented well.
Right, thank you so much. Nelly, do you want to contribute on this question?
Yeah, so I guess two things really. One is that I fall into a lot of minority groups, so I'm very used to not having my voice heard. I'm a disabled student, I'm non-binary, so and yeah, I've throughout my whole university experience, both at Kent and my previous uni, I got very used to having to shout very loud to make my own voice heard. So I'm not scared of being loud. Anyone that's attended UEC will attest to that. I'm not scared of making sure that the community's voices are being heard. And if someone's not listening, I will tell them they're not listening, and we will find a way to figure it out. I guess the other thing is just my experience. You know, at my previous uni, I effectively worked every part of the sabbatical role other than having the name of it, just down to my previous uni only having 2 full-time officers. So lots of us had to take on the burden of that role to make things happen if we wanted them to. And I think, yeah, just really, I know how this job works. I know how, you know, there's this glorious student-facing side of it that we all love, and that's the part that everyone really wants to run for. But I'm also very aware of the kind of behind-the-scenes nitty-gritty, being stuck in a meeting with like 40 papers for 4 hours. I'm not unaware of those sides. It may not be the bit that students see, but actually it's the bit where things get done. So I'm not unaware of that happening. I've done it before. So really, I'm just here to be the voice of diversity, I guess. I'm hearing a lot of students saying it'd be really nice to have a disabled voice on some governing bodies to make some differences. So people might think disability is a burden, or makes you it's a hindrance in being in this role, but actually it makes us super organized. It makes us really good at managing our energies. It makes us really good at just kind of fighting for what needs to be done and knowing the most efficient way to get there, because we have to all the time. So I guess that's what makes me stand out, is maybe I just look at things a bit differently. My brain is wired differently. I have to go through different methods to get there. And it means I maybe might see potential that other people wouldn't necessarily see.
Right, right. Thank you so much. Finally, Toby, would you like to say anything on the question?
Yes, thank you so much. So similar to what's already been said, I think with the candidates here already, we do have, to a degree, similar experiences in terms of being relevant for the role. But I think one of the, areas that will, cause me to stand out, I think is pretty much the area of my desires and potential policies and things I want to get done. Because even though we have similar policies as well and similar views on engagement and visibility, I think one of the things I'm also quite passionate about and really want to add on top of that is number one, which is really major in terms of well-being and mental health, especially as we go into more in-person teaching based on the recent government regulation, how to really tackle that in a more, unique and different way to really solve those issues. And also, one of the areas that I've noticed hasn't really been highlighted quite a lot, is as a result of the lockdown and the COVID-19 issues, even amongst the postgraduate community, especially those on campus, you can't really leave, students of faith, and how they haven't really been able to practice to a degree their faith on campus. Because for many of them, it's really vital to have that in-person interaction. And many of them, especially international, who can't go home, they've been on campus and unable to really, do that. And that's of course had a lot of impact on them mentally, definitely spiritually as well. So I think what would really, I guess, makes me stand out is, in addition to what's already been said and the similar experience and policies, just those additional ones as well, which I've noticed hasn't really been, I guess, said by others. So I think that's what I would say at this time.
Right. Thank you so much. And with that final question comes the end of the questioning and debate part of this debate with all of the Vice President for Postgraduate Experience candidates. I would now like to move into closing statements. Just to remind our candidates, you will have 1 minute in the closing statements. Please try and stick to the time. I'm going to start with Ali on this one, and your time, 1 minute, starts now.
So basically, I'm just really passionate about making a difference in student lives. I will fight for whatever students need to make that difference, and do that by bringing students into those conversations. Listening to students isn't enough. You have to have people with those experience involved in the conversations which matter. And that comes from engaging with students and making sure that they can actually make their own voices heard, as well as us providing a platform. So I will keep doing basically what I'm doing now behind the scenes, just in this role.
Right, thank you so much. Moving on to Achna, your 1 minute closing statement time starts now.
As definitely mentioned in most of the questions before, with the plethora of experience, I think if you vote for me as your postgraduate Vice President, I can bring you a person who's responsible, reliable, and resilient to whatever is going to get thrown to them, because of how much I've seen behind the scenes and how closely I have been working with not only Kent Union on Canterbury, but definitely with the Medway campus. And I just have to mention that although we've been doing so much, I am very keen on bringing that Medway voice back onto Canterbury again, because we are still unheard over there and we have a lot to change over there, and I want to drive that change.
Right, thank you so much. Moving on to Kobe, your 1 minute closing statement time starts now.
Okay, thank you. So I guess what has already been said previously, I think majoring on my experience, but also building upon the successes already of the SU and the Kent Union, and the steps already taken by the past officers. So building on that and taking it to a whole different level, by identifying those areas that can be improved and refined. I think it's been mentioned multiple times about engagement, having a more focused, directed approach for the vast type of postgraduate students. So just really increasing that visibility, lacing with postgraduates on a more intimate and direct level, and tackling these issues together to develop the SU and the university as a whole to a whole different level. So thank you.
Right, I'm gonna have to cut you off there. There 1 minute. Thank you so much. Finally, Laura, your 1 minute for your closing statement starts now.
You should vote for me because I'm willing to fight. I'm willing to fight your corner and to back you up. I am willing to listen to you and to act on your opinions and your priorities. I won't be quiet and I won't sit on the sidelines. I will listen to you and act upon your decisions and your opinions. And I'll fight for the right thing. I'll fight for what you need out of this university, because for so long postgraduates have been ignored and silenced, and they won't anymore.
Right, thank you so much. And with that, we have reached the end of the postgraduate experience vice presidential debates. I would like to thank all the candidates for their time and their wonderful answers, allowing us to get to know them better and allowing our student body to know who their perfect vice president for postgraduate engagement is. Thank you so much to Kent Union, and a special mention here to our presenter, head of factual, and overall very loved Eddie Thomas, who has done an amazing job, not only this year with managing Kent Union elections, but also in all of his years as a beloved member of Kent Television. So with that, we reach the end of these debates. Please make sure to tune in for tomorrow's debates. That is the final debate that we have in this Kent Union Leadership Election 2021, with, of course, the presidential candidates. That is 1 to 1.5 hours of debating with the presidential candidates about the issues that matter to the student body the most. That is at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Zoom links can be found at Kent Union and KTV's Instagram pages, Facebook pages, and all other social media. So please make sure to tune into those. I am Amateur Star, Station Manager for KTV, signing off. Thank you once more to the candidates, and see you